You certainly do on this side of the table.
Welcome to the City of Easton conference room. You will now be connected to the conference call. Thank you. Please enter the conference PIN number.
It's been really bad, so I'm just staying at home.
You got a virus?
Yeah, the viral, the viral, that is just a cough and it's just like a flu.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. Doctor said it's a viral. I don't know what is that.
I hope you'll be better.
Yeah, thank you.
Imagine I have to get.
We were just doing it. They might want. Yes. Mr. O'Connell, are you on the line?
Yes, I am.
Mrs. Sultana, are you on the line?
Hey, Jim, nice
Yes,
to meet you.
ma'am.
I can't know. She is? Darling? Yeah, it's true.
Oh, the station is nothing. So much. The old one was so much better.
Well, I think it's, I don't know.
Oh, it had character, right? I don't smack you. I don't blame you. I don't blame you at all.
Can you turn it up at all?
No, good. Keep going.
No, it's fine. Can you turn it up at all?
The coordinator for the Pennsylvania Law
Just to make sure that they can hear and we can hear.
Oh.
Dave, can you just say something so we can hear you?
Yes, I am on the line. Can you hear
Okay,
me now?
Mrs. Sultana?
Yes, I am on the line. Can you hear me?
It's very faint, so make sure you speak into the phone. Hold on. Yeah, that's the only thing. I'll let it go.
Rita. Hi. Hey, Roger. I'd like to call this meeting to order, stated session of City Council on this date of September 14th, 2022. We have two members of council that are on the telephone calling in. Both are ill. They were missed last night's meeting. Mr. O'Connell has COVID and Mrs. Sultana had a visit to the hospital last night, so we want to wish both of them a speedy recovery. Please rise for the invocation, followed by the pledge of flag. Tonight we ask for your wisdom as we make some of the decisions that will keep our city moving in the right direction. While we do that, please help us carefully consider the impact of all people of our city and let us make decisions that are inclusive. While we may not agree with our decisions that altogether, but help us to be unified in carrying them out. May all of our decisions keep Easton as a city for everyone, and may we also congratulate our police department on receiving the accreditation again at the premier level. Amen. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Roll call, Madam Clerk.
Mr. Brown?
Here.
Mr. Ettinger?
Here.
Mr. Milan?
Here.
Mr. O'Connell?
Here.
Dr. Ruggles?
Here.
Mrs. Sultana?
Here.
Mayor Panto?
Here. At this time, we have the approval of the agenda. Move to approve.
Second.
Moved and approved in second. Any discussion? Roll call.
Mr. Ettinger?
Aye.
Mr. Milan?
Aye.
Mr. O'Connell?
Aye.
Dr. Ruggles?
Aye.
Mrs. Sultana?
Aye.
Mayor Panto?
Aye.
And Mr. Brown?
Aye.
Action on the minutes of the August 24th meeting.
Move.
Moved.
Second.
And second, any additions, deletions, or corrections? Hearing none, roll call.
Mr. Milan?
Aye.
Mr. O'Connell?
Aye.
Dr. Ruggles?
Aye.
Mrs. Sultana?
Aye.
Mayor Panto?
Aye.
Mr. Brown?
Aye.
And Mr. Ettinger?
Aye.
At this time, we have a presentation by the Pennsylvania Law Enforcement Accreditation Commission. I'll ask the chief to come up and share the good news and introduce our guest for a presentation. I am extremely honored to be the mayor of the city of Easton when we reach this level that few other departments reach. I'm very proud of our department. It's come a long way since the early days. So, Chief Scalzo.
Good evening, everybody. Chief Carl Scalzo, City of Easton Police Department, 48 North 4th Street. I'm only going to say a few words. Basically, everybody here knows how important the accreditation program is to the Easton Police Department and how important it has been to me in my career as an officer all the way up here to the role of chief. But what I'd like to do is call up the two individuals, although it's an entire department, every single officer, all the way up and down, civilian staff, all who are responsible for the accreditation success or failure. The two individuals who run it and do a lot of the heavy lifting, if not most or all of the heavy lifting of running that program for our department, is Captain Brian Hernkane and Lieutenant Dan Regan. So I'd ask the two of them to come forward, please. And then I'm going to let Brian introduce retired chief and current coordinator for the program and speak a little bit about that and bring him up here. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Chief.
How you doing? Captain Brian Hernkane, Easton Police Department, 48 North 4th Street. As many of you know, we were accredited back in 2007 for the first time. We have now gone 15 years successfully of reaccreditations through 5 successful reaccreditation periods. We get accredited every 3 years with no continuances or extensions offered. Myself, Lieutenant Dan Regan here, have been responsible for the last 4 reassessments that we have completed. At this time, I'd like to introduce Chief Jim Adams. He is the Accreditation Program Manager for the Pennsylvania Chiefs of Police, retired from Upper Allen after 42 years.
Thank you very much, and I'd like to thank City Council for giving me this opportunity for sharing with this milestone that your police department accomplished. I have to go back a little bit in time because I was one of the original assessors that came here in 2007. And I probably shouldn't share this with you, but I will. But the person who held my position actually came and did a site visit because there were some concerns with the building and whether Easton Police Department would ever get accredited. And his comment driving back was, there's no way they're ever going to get accredited. But due to the tenacity and the dedication of your staff at the time, with a lot of ingenuity, I suspect a couple trips to the hardware store, we showed up for the first assessment and they met every standard. We don't evaluate on whether it looks pretty or not. We evaluate on, do you meet the standards of best practices in law enforcement? And can you actually show proof that your officers are complying with those best practices? That's going back 15 plus years ago. And here we are, they've been through their initial assessment, and then every 3 years we send a new team of assessors out to go through the process again, every 3 years. And also too, in between those 3-year assessments, they have to send my office a very detailed self-assessment annual report. This is not a sticker for life program. It really takes work to become accredited, and it takes a lot of work to maintain it. We have accredited 160 agencies in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. Depending on what day you count them, there's about 11 or 1,200 municipal police departments. We currently have 147 accredited agencies. Not proud of the fact that we've accredited 160, but currently have 147, but I think that goes to the credibility of the program. Not all agencies are able to maintain it. Your police department has been able to maintain it. Well, what are they maintaining? Right now, we have 125 standards or best practices in law enforcement that they have to have policy, special operating procedures on, and actually have to follow it. They have to show proof of compliance that their officers are actually following them. But then within those 125 standards, there's another, what we call bullets or substandards. And when you add them all together, they're actually complying with 370 best practices in law enforcement, which is quite an accomplishment, quite a task. And also, too, now that they have gone through 5 what we call clean assessments, they haven't asked for any extensions as far as asking for more time to have their accreditation. They haven't had any provisional issues. It's been good, clean assessments all 5 times. We recognize them with premier status. Those 167 or the 147 agencies that are accredited, that means right now in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, only 13% of municipal police departments are accredited. Now they are one of 24 police departments that hold the premier status. That means that the City of Easton Police Department is in the 2% bracket of accredited agencies for 15 years or longer. It's quite an accomplishment. I sometimes ask, okay, so what value is there in accreditation? I'm sure your solicitor can speak to that point. But what the studies show is when you compare accredited agencies versus non-accredited agencies, liability dramatically drops for accredited agencies. The number of lawsuits against accredited agencies are statistically less than for those non-accredited. And even the suits that do come against accredited agencies, the payouts are significantly less. A lot of the insurance carriers, the risk management pools are recognizing that and actually giving reductions in premium costs for municipalities that have accredited agencies. I can stand up here and talk to you about accreditation until midnight tonight. I'd be happy to do that, but something tells me you have other pressing items. But seriously, if you'd like to learn more about what your police department has accomplished, you can go onto our Pennsylvania Chiefs website, pachiefs.org. It's a public-facing webpage. You don't need any special permissions to get into it. There's an accreditation tab. We list all 125 standards that you can actually see what your police department is complying with. There's a lot of frequently asked questions. My contact information is there, but certainly you have excellent resources here because you have guys that have been involved in accreditation for 15 years that can answer your questions. I again want to thank you. I actually have 2 presentations tonight. The first one being the 3-year reassessment certificate of the City of Easton, and then I also have the premier plaque. That's my honor to come here tonight and share with you the accomplishment of your police department. Job well done. And I'd love to have a photo op with City Council with your permission, but if you don't want to have your picture taken, we'd love to put it on our webpage in our photo gallery, but that's entirely up to you, and I respect whatever you decide to do. We're -2. However you want to work it.
Yeah. Chief. Carl. Yeah, you should get in. You should have someone else take the picture. Have PD in here.
Oh, no, thank you. Always good to see you. Great. You got your pillow.
Thank you again.
You got your pillow.
Thanks for coming up. Thank you very much.
My pillow.
And to the department officers that are here, I know it's an up and down process. Met now 4 times of the 5 with the assessors, and I've been very, very pleased with their comments. More importantly, their comments that even on the ride-alongs, they saw that the police officers themselves, the rank and file, also knew about the standards and the accreditation process and the things that they needed to make. I was, unfortunately, Chief, I was the mayor back in the 80s, and it was not a good time to be mayor with the police department we had. It was a tough time. And today, when you talk about lawsuits, we had lawsuits all the time, every weekend just about. I can honestly say that since I've been here for 14 years, we have not had any major lawsuit against our police. And that is a credit to the professionalism that our department has become. So I appreciate you being here.
No problem. I drove out early and the chief gave me a tour of his new station.
It's horrible. It's ugly. The old one was much nicer.
No more dripping water.
No more.
A lot of thought process put into it, and I mean, it's really, I think, a testament to his dedication, his officer's dedication, just the way they thought it out. And it's not a lot of bells and whistles, but again, it really tends to their needs and, presents a professional police department.
Absolutely.
Do miss a little bit of the ambiance of the old police department. That had character.
Oh.
Had a lot of character.
Character?
Which ambiance are you referring to? The falling concrete or the?
Yeah.
The water coming in in the light standards? Yeah.
Pleasure to drive out there. I appreciate it.
Thank you very much for being here. Okay, at this time, we're at public comment on agenda items only. There is time at the end of the meeting to talk about other issues, but is there anyone here who would like to talk about agenda items? Seeing none, we'll go right on the consent agenda, Madam Clerk.
Under the consent agenda, hang on. We have a resolution being introduced by Mr. Ettinger, which would approve an agreement between the City of Easton and Omnis LLC for the planning and architectural services for the former Easton Iron and Metal property. And we also have a resolution being introduced by Mr. Ettinger approving an agreement between the City of Easton and Barry Issett and Associates to perform permitting and design work for the rehabilitation of the existing trestle bridge that connects the Carl Sterner's Arch Trail and the former Easton Iron and Metal.
So moved.
Second. Moved and second, any discussion? Roll call.
Mr. Brown?
Aye.
Mr. Ettinger?
Aye.
Mr. Milan?
Aye.
Mr. O'Connell?
Aye.
Dr. Ruggles?
Aye.
Mrs. Sultana?
Aye.
Mayor Pianto?
Aye. At this time, we have reports. I'll receive the fire department report for July and August, and we'll move right into finance report. Mr. Brown.
Thank you, Mayor. I have several things on the agenda this evening. Under new business, I have Bill number 21. That's amending the 2022 general fund budget. Bill 22 is the amending of the 2022 revolving capital budget. Bill 23 is the highway and aid liquid fuel budget. And we have two resolutions coming forth this evening. One for capital general fund reimbursement, and also revolving capital fund for the parking deck. That is my report for this evening.
Thank you. Economic Development Committee, Councilmember O'Connell.
Mayor, I don't have a report, but I did want to mention that last week I met with John Kingsley and Shakira Martindale, and we discussed at length the land bank proposal. That's in the works. So thank you.
Planning and Coach Committee, Mrs. Sultana.
Yes, I just want to say there will be a committee 27th to invite Kevin Sedella from Hera Registry to present to council an alternative to our vacant property registration service provider.
Okay. Anything else?
Mayor, I didn't hear what she said.
You want to repeat that a little louder?
Here?
I did.
What
I know
was
what
it?
she's, there's gonna be a committee
Committee
meeting.
meeting on the 27th.
Oh.
Yeah, on Tuesday, the 27th, Stephen's going to introduce a person to council regarding our vacant property registry thing. And also, he has a new chapter in the ordinance that he would like to discuss prior to being introduced.
Thank you.
Public Safety Committee, Councilmember Ruggles.
I have no report.
Public Works, Councilmember Ettinger.
I have no report, Mayor.
Administration Committee, Councilmember Milan.
I have no report, Mayor.
And City Attorney, City Solicitor, Attorney General. I mean, you're not the Attorney General yet.
Oh.
Joel Shear.
Jump ship.
I deferred. I have no report.
Okay.
Thank you.
Report of the mayor, I just have a couple quick items. One is that the budget will be delivered to you, and the budget message will be presented at noon on October 3rd. The first is a Saturday, so it'll be the first business day after the first, according to the charter. This week we did have a Winter Village meeting with the local downtown merchants. We went over some really good items there. And the last thing I would talk about is not as pleasant. I did get an email today, or yesterday rather, from one of our really businesses that have been in place probably for 70 years. The Easton home on the Tenor Block, Northampton Street, is closing. It's a wonderful place. I go there at least 3 or 4 times a year to talk to the residents. And their Victorian Tea Party at Christmas time is always well attended. But the Presbyterian Homes has decided to close it. From what I'm being told, it is just being closed, or it's not being sold or anything else. So I don't know. We'll keep an eye on it, and we'll work on that to get another developer in there, another senior home operator, if that's what they desire to do. As the circle and the garage are proceeding, I know it's slow but sure. The circle contractor is out of the circle for at least 3 weeks while PennDOT does the roadway and the quadrant. If you haven't seen the video that our urban forester did on the reason why we removed 2 trees from the circle quadrant.
Mayor, that video was not posted live.
Oh, it hasn't been?
That was just internal.
Oh, okay.
Mayor,
Well,
why
we
don't
should
you
post
go-
it.
We certainly can, but why don't you still go over?
Yeah, we should still post it.
Okay.
I mean, I thought it was posted live.
Yep.
It's Rob, who is our forester, explaining that the trees were actually planted on top of a concrete foundation. So there was no room for the roots. He called it pancake. The roots were pancaked. And we are putting mature trees there, and we're going to try to use those trees someplace else. That was the original intent. They were so bad that they just were cut down. So we do have trees that are ordered that are more mature. They're not just little, usually you go by caliper of the bark of the trunk, and usually it's a 2.5 caliber. Ours will at least be 5 or 6. So we're looking forward to that. The parking garage is up to date, except for the electronics are back ordered. That's what's holding up the parking garage from being electrified. They are still working on concrete, and this week they worked on the glass panes all the things that really we could open if we had to, but the electronics are not in. And Lafayette College has opened up their garage, which started about the same time, but they've opted to go and purchase other electronic components, and then when the new components come in about 6 months, they'll just replace them, and that's probably a $150,000 or $200,000 expense. So that's the update on that. We've been working with CVS today on South Side has probably been closed. There was an accident that took out their main wire that provides electricity to the entire store. I believe our code department gave CVS ample time, more than a month, to hook up to commercial electricity. So I believe they went out today and actually closed the store because they don't have commercial electricity. I have been getting complaints from the neighbors on my old block where I grew up on Milton Street. People were complaining about the noise at night. When it's quiet out, the generator is right in back of the store and was creating a humming noise. So that's where we're at with CVS, and hopefully they'll get it fixed sooner than later. When I was up there today, the young lady was complaining to me, a customer in the store, and it is a CVS issue, not a Metropolitan Edison issue. We did have a meeting this week with MedEd. I think it was very cordial and very conclusive that we got some things done with MedEd. That one of the delays in the Circle project had been MedEd in moving their wires and connecting our traffic signals overhead rather than underground. And number of streetlights that are out that I see every night when I'm traveling through the city. Obviously, streetlights help deter crime, and people feel good when they're on. When they're not working, and they're reporting it and reporting it and reporting it. There's one I told the vice president of the company. I go home every night, and at the corner of Folk and St. Joseph Street, that light has been reported out since last April, not this past April, April of 2021. So it's been a long time. And not just from the safety point of view, but the city does not have every light metered. We pay what is called a tariff. The state passes the tariff, and right now the tariff, the city pays whether that light is lit or not. We pay $18 a month per head. So if it's a double light, we pay $35. If it's a single light, we pay $18. So we're paying a lot of money. I asked for a refund, so we'll see what happens with that. But anyway, it was a good meeting. We did have a meeting. Oh, I don't know. Thousands. I don't know how many we have. We have at least somewhere between 50 and 75 that are out. So about 5 or 7 years ago, I got a credit for $5,000. So hopefully we'll do the same. And I told him that. Okay, Mr. City Administrator.
Couple items to know. Mayor, last night at the council's committee meeting, the administration followed up on a continuation of a hearing regarding the pudding bar in Easton. The administration last night had its opportunity to present various facts regarding the sequence of events that occurred in 21 and 22, leading to the Darby's complaint to council in May. The agenda last night went as follows. It was divided into 4 parts. The first was to discuss several new issues and also clarifications regarding number 1, that the Darby's were treated differently than other people. For example, I think the exact quote was that the city would have treated an elderly white woman differently. And then secondly, the timely response during the complaint when the Darby's issued regarding the flooring. They said there was a 2-month lag. So we started off in detailed going through that issue and explaining to council the sequence of events and the facts, and the ultimately the conclusion with regards to those 2 particular items did not change any conclusion in the report that I had submitted to council. The second item was regarding the review by the director of Planning and Codes, Stephen Norowski, on addressing specifically interpretations of the UCC and the codes ordinance as it relates to flooring and HVAC systems and other items. The conclusion being that the department found no issues with any of the violations that were issued or interpretations of those violations, including the ultimate determination to continue to keep that unit open and not determine that it was a use forbidden, as an example. The third item on the agenda was a review of the final disposition of 118-120 by the RDA, as well as go into detail any tax incentives and loans that were mischaracterized as grants. And John Kingsley, the Director of Community and Economic Development for the city, went into detail on that entire process. It was a long process. It was a 4 to 5 year process. And again, for further transparency, City Council has no involvement in that. The RDA is managed ultimately by a board of residents. So that is a committee that makes those decisions with recommendations by full-time staff. And then the fourth component was a review by our assistant city solicitor of the right to know request that was submitted by the Darbys prior to the last meeting, in which the Darbys were given an opportunity to review a file and make copies of 61 pages, 62 pages within the building file for 118-120. And the information that was provided to the Darbys was consistent with what the city perceives as a right to know item under the UCC. So in other words, everything was provided to the Darbys except for really critical type of information like building plans or any open violations. And the assistant city solicitor last night spoke in detail of that. I do want to say that concluded then the city administration's presentation of the facts. Last night there were no questions regarding any of the information that we put forward. If there's any questions now, I can certainly address them if you had time to think through them. There were several questions asked back and forth, but if there's not, I have 2 other items on my report that I'll give. The second item was the mayor and myself, including Dave Hopkins, and we had a representative from the senator's office, met with executives at MetEd to discuss just better services into our area. I thought the meeting went well. I think we got their attention. At the meeting was a vice president of operations president of operations for Pennsylvania. In addition to that was vice president of engineering for First Energy. And then lastly, the director of customer accounts for First Energy were present. We thought it was a productive meeting. We did talk about, as a whole, the general needs of the city, but we went into detail, as the mayor discussed tonight, street lights and how that's an issue and how we haven't really got really good responses from First Energy, and they promised to address that. Like many businesses across the country, they're going through a lot of turnover. They're feeling pressure on hiring these positions. They can't fill them fast enough, and while they're not making excuses, that was part of the overall excuse that they gave to us, but they promised to regroup, and they did bring a new one of their new engineers that's servicing our area that would be a conduit to the city and also to First Energy. The last thing that I wanted, and Mayor, did you want to say anything else regarding that?
No, I think what the public probably doesn't know is that the developers that have been developing in the city have been paying what I would think are exorbitant fees to MetEd to provide electricity to the business. And we have a developer who's been the primary developer in Allentown who pays nothing to PPL. They look at it as an extension of the service, and they're going to be getting new customers from that. But there is a difference in the state tariff where MetEd is charging versus PPL. So we may have been erroneous, but for a developer who's working in Allentown and one who's working in Easton, $1 million is $1 million, and $1 million here and zero up in Allentown is a big difference. And we do know that that developer was looking for other sites in Easton, and he hasn't talked about that in a while. So we don't want to lose the two big projects we have, but if anything was going to keep them out, it wasn't anything other than the fees being charged by MedEd. Here we paid almost $158,000. Every project, no matter how small or large, is paying, in my mind, what I said to the president right now, is, in my mind, is for you to upgrade your grid that hasn't been touched in 60 years. This grid served a downtown where there were 3,500 more residents and a lot of industries, not just stores. You had big department stores back in the 60s. You had MedEd's own office was down here, and their own manufacturing, not manufacturing, but their own line was down here. You had Lehigh Valley Dairies down here. You had a lot of big industries down here that were big energy users, and just wanted to make sure that they understood. And I was very glad that they did listen, and I thought we did get their attention.
I think
They only answered to the PUC, and I made it very clear that I don't want to go to the PUC. I don't want this to be adversarial. I want it to be collegial, as I said yesterday, and I think they want it that way as well.
Yeah, agreed. It was good to have clarity on, while they're different from PP&L, what incentives they offer, and they went through it, and that provided a level of transparency that we didn't know
I think
about.
Joe Kelly from Senator Bosco's office said it best in that in PennDOT redoing our circle, there's an elevation change, and they have to lower their one vault a couple inches. And they now want us to make it explosion proof and upgrade it and make it bigger and all the things that are just helping them. All we want them to do is lower it. All they have to do is lower it. And all the other utilities and suburban water are doing that. Why aren't they? They want to charge us to do all these upgrades, and we just don't think that's fair. And I think we got their attention. And the president agreed with us. He agreed. So that's good.
The last thing, Mayor, just to advise council, as the charter details, the city administrator provides a budget to the mayor on September 1. We usually do it on or about September 1, but that has been already submitted to the mayor, and we've been working together then on preparing a budget for council then to review. So I know behind the scenes, we've been doing that, coupled with today the finance department had a meeting with our auditors that they're uploading all the documents, and I think we're going to be prepared to see some progress very shortly. So that's all I have, Mayor.
Thank you. Mr. Scheer, anything else? No. All right, there's no correspondence, no unfinished business. We'll go into new business, Madam Clerk.
Okay, we have Bill number 21 being introduced by Mr. Brown, which would amend the 2022 general fund budget.
Introduce.
Bill number 22 being introduced by Mr. Brown, which would amend the 2022 revolving capital fund budget.
Introduce.
Bill number 23 being introduced by Mr. Brown, which would amend the 2022 highway aid liquid fuels budget.
Go introduce.
Question,
Question
Dr.
on
Ruggles.
that. Just so I'm clear on this, is this monies that we got through, as I read it, this is the ARPA monies that were unspent?
No. This
I'm
is.
sorry, am I on the wrong one?
You're on the one on liquid fuels.
Okay,
That does say ARPA.
that says ARPA.
Oh yeah, the undesignated, the undesignated prior year
Right.
line item.
So just so I'm clear, we took money out of ARPA to do road repaving in 21.
That's correct.
And the money that we actually had in the budget in 21 for road repaving went into the general account, according to this.
Well, in short, what happened is at the start of 21, before we had the ARPA monies, we were using liquid fuels for road repaving. When we got the ARPA money, we shifted and started spending that ARPA money, leaving the already budgeted liquid fuels road repaving money there. We didn't spend that money, so we do have the ability to continue road repaving this year. So we'd like to ask council to approve us going back into that fund balance, taking out that unspent money from liquid fuels and using that for the remainder of this year.
But don't we get liquid fuels this year too?
We do.
Or whenever we're going to use this, right? My question is this: why does this have to go back into road repaving? I mean, it seems to me like we now have 2 times the amount of money in road repaving, if I'm understanding it correctly, than we did in the past.
You are. This year we've had the ability to. We've basically spent the road repaving budget for this year. We still have a couple of months where we can pave more roads, and the thought was that if council approves us, to use this funding from liquid fuels that had been apportioned last year but not spent, that we could continue paving until the weather changes, and we would then basically get more roads done this year.
I just question the fact that this just automatically went back to road repaving, and we didn't take a look at it for what other needs were in the city. I mean, it seems to me like we had whatever money we budgeted for road repaving, we used from the ARPA money, correct?
Mm-hmm. Correct.
And now we have this extra money that was left over in liquid fuels, and we're saying, oh, well, it was budgeted for road repaving, so let's throw it back into road repaving. My question is, why not take a look at that and say, okay, where else would we need money in the city instead of just throwing it back into road repaving?
Well,
My question.
the liquid fuels funds are quite restrictive, right?
I understand that, but I mean,
but as
it's
far
not
as
just road repaving.
Understood.
But we already have the money in electricity for streetlights.
Right.
And we already have the money in the road salt. So this truly is a balance, and the roads that we did more roads this year than we've ever done in the past.
It was behind.
However, we still have a lot of roads that need reconstruction, and we're milling them and paving them, not just paving them, building it up and not having a curb reveal. What Mr. Hopkins is saying is that we can still pave all those roads that still need to be done, even though we've spent last year's allocation. We have $233,000 in liquid fuels. He'd like to use it on road reconstruction.
And Mayor, you're right. The need is, the demand exceeds any amount of money that we have in the entire budget. I mean, we could probably get a bond for millions of dollars to do road repavement, and there still would be a significant demand. But the second thing is that there also, the utilization of this money is there for heavy machinery. And we do, in talking to Dave, we do have a plan for the balance and future liquid fuel money to support our purchasing of heavy equipment.
Because I remember seeing liquid fuels being used for equipment.
Dave is very careful, the director is very careful on how we spend liquid fuel money to make sure that we can purchase our.
Why don't we do this?
On heavy equipment.
Why don't we have it introduced tonight and have Mr. Hopkins at the next meeting to explain everything in detail, and then either vote yea or nay. But at least it's introduced.
Yeah, I mean, I just wanted to. I mean, it might be just exactly what we need to do, but when I looked at it, I was like, well, what did we evaluate? Well, whatever else we need, because if
we're gonna need a lot of road salt this year, from what I'm reading.
So, but yeah, that's fine. Let's just have Dave come in next.
Do we allow the 151 fund to operate at a deficit, or do we reimburse that at some point?
We reimburse, don't we, Mark?
But, council, how do you mean on deficit?
Well, I mean, the road reconstruction line item in the budget in 151 is operating at a $9,000 deficit. There's no budgeted money for that.
I'd have to defer to Mark.
So, I mean, that's according to your last spreadsheet. So, I mean, are we going to reimburse that fund?
Yeah, we would have
Zero
to.
it out because.
Or transfer money within the 151 fund, as opposed to liquid fuels.
Yeah.
And then the 101 fund still has money too, though.
in road reconstruction?
Yeah.
Yeah, we do, but we do know that there are
So
invoices
he
that
has
were
that
not
allocated for something?
It could be,
Correct.
it could be lagging, there could be invoices. that
Exactly,
weren't-
yeah, the report that was last shared with council was through July, so we have had another, month plus of work, so that money that was budgeted
Probably
is
gone then.
correct.
Yeah, that's right.
The only thing that's left is $140,000.
My understanding, it's gone.
Yep.
Just because the work gets done and then we get billed, simply
Okay.
like there's a lag there. I will tell you that, road reconstruction is also dependent on the price of oil, and gas. Gas is extremely expensive. So what $300,000 is buying yesterday is not gonna buy, the same amount tomorrow. So, we're doing less roads with the same amount of money.
Do you anticipate another transfer for the one-on-one fund then? To finish out the year?
What, we anticipate transfers, for which line item?
Road reconstruction.
After this? No, you only,
This is,
no,
I'm talking about the 101 fund. Like, do you think, if we're tapped out as of July or August, do you think we're gonna be doing more work, we have to move money over?
No, the thought was basically to use this, to use liquid fuels. So we would we would spend the.
Having a 101 fund, you're gonna
Correct.
zero it out, and you're gonna go in liquid fuels then?
yes.
Correct.
I mean, we don't have,
Assuming council.
listen,
approves.
we don't,
Good.
we don't have to. This is going on recommendation of the director.
I'm not.
But and I understand what you're saying. I'm just being, I'm just punctuating the point here. That this is coming from the director. I'm just nervous that this 2 week period is going to cut off our ability to pave roads. And by the way, it's fine. We're just going to pave less roads. This will just be transferred to next year. So we do have a plan with regards to purchasing heavy equipment, and certainly Dave can go through that. I'm just telling you that this recommendation is coming from Dave. I would, more than anything, I would rather be conservative and not spend money. And if we wait 2 weeks, we may not end up spending this money at all. So, which will just carry over to
This
next
is only
year.
introduced anyway.
Right, it's only.
Right, it's only
So it would
introduced.
still be
yeah.
2 weeks
Yeah.
regardless.
Oh, regardless,
Yeah,
that's
council
right.
would vote on it in 2 weeks.
Oh, that's right, that's right.
You're still paving. We're still paving.
We're still paving,
Until
but we're only,
the general fund money is gone.
Yeah,
and then
once-
at
once-
that point.
We're still paving though.
Yep.
yeah, but this is not like fuels, or this is not like some utility.
Right.
Once we're done, we're done. We don't go past our
It's
budget.
seasonal.
Yeah,
Well, if weather allows us to keep going.
That's right.
So we're gonna keep going.
right,
Okay.
right. But to your point, I forgot about that. You're right. It doesn't matter. So Dave will be here at the next meeting.
Okay, moving on.
Okay, we have a resolution being introduced by Mr. Brown, where the council of the city, is declaring its intent to fund remediation of city-owned property and to reimburse its revolving capital and/or general fund for the expenditures.
So move.
Second.
Move to second discussion. Roll call.
Mayor Panto?
Aye.
Mr. Brown?
Aye.
Mr. Ettinger?
Aye.
Mr. Milan?
Aye.
Mr. O'Connell?
Aye.
Dr. Ruggles?
Aye.
Mrs. Sultana?
Aye.
We also have a resolution being introduced by Mr. Brown where Council of the City of Easton, is declaring its intent to fund the construction of the parking deck and then to reimburse its revolving capital and/or general fund for the expenditures of this project.
So move.
Second.
Move to second discussion.
I have a question, Mayor.
Go ahead.
Is this, if I'm reading this correct, which I'm sure I'm not, can you clarify what the intent of this money is? Because if I read it correctly, which I may or may not be, we're constructing a parking deck? We're funding it?
Mhm.
Which parking deck is this?
Fourth
Fourth
Street.
Street.
Does that have to be in this resolution?
It was up front.
What do you mean? does
From-
it have-
I mean, it's just, there's a,
This says park.
just parking deck. And it's actually,
Of a parking deck.
Oh,
yeah, I mean,
Oh, good.
you want to, yeah, I think.
I'm just,
Fourth Street, it should say Fourth Street Garage, you're right.
yeah, I mean, Joel, does it have to be explicit? I mean, I'm not trying to make this complicated. It's looks like we're building a deck, and it says, and if you read into it, it's like it's not really clear on what we're doing. So, I mean, we can leave it go. I mean, if he clarified, I'm fine with that. But
This is bridge financing only.
Yeah, I mean, basically, we're lending money to the project as, if I read this correctly, again, I may or may not be, that we're just bridging them with temporary financing for to finish it? Is this a bond? Like,
Borrowing from ourselves.
I guess I'm not, so we are bonding this then?
No, we're basically borrowing it from ourselves. We're bridge
Okay.
financing it until
Okay.
basically next year when the ARPA money would be, or other funds would be used to cover that.
Well, does it mention ARPA in this resolution?
No, it's not ARPA funds.
No, I'm sorry, you're right.
It's capital.
Yep.
Okay.
But I think it should say Fourth Street Garage, because
And I,
even though we couldn't go ahead and build a garage on Front Street, which we don't have a Front Street, so I use Front Street, because none of the contracts have been approved by council, it should delineate where this money is being spent.
It says new garage,
I know, but
and it could be new
it
Fourth
could,
Street garage.
or it
that's
could
fine.
be-
I'm happy to
could
make the
make
change.
a
I can
brand
make the
new one.
change. That's,
Listen,
Yeah, it could be.
it
no,
just,
it's
I mean,
a,
it just has a
it's
parking
better,
deck.
better
I
clarification.
mean, I'm not,
I'll make
I'm
the change
all
and
for
resubmit
structured
it.
parking, but I'm like,
Oh, you know what? It says above that, it says, we are requesting amendment to fund a portion of the construction expense associated with the Fourth Street parking
where?
deck, right above expense.
That's in the memo, that's not, that's in the memo, it's not in the
resolution.
I can add the Fourth Street.
Yeah.
if
It's fine. I mean, I'm not trying to be
No, we
difficult.
should.
I just,
No, your point is well taken.
And do you want it classified as a deck, or do you want it classified as a garage?
Well, all of our garages are decks, they're not
Okay.
garages.
Why I called it a deck.
We call it a parking garage in Easton, but it's, a parking garage is Penn Central in New York, where you're actually pulling into a garage. That's what got us in trouble here, not trouble, it's cost us extra money because the third-party reviewer decided we had to have an exhaust system and a firewall that cost us almost $200,000.
So,
So Peter, under the first, I'm
in
sorry,
the first whereas,
Right.
okay, where it says new parking deck,
right,
just make that Fourth
Fourth
Street
Street Park.
parking
That's all.
deck. Because that's where it defines,
I could move the
Project,
new
right.
Fourth Street parking deck.
Right.
Okay, I'll fix it tomorrow.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments or questions about the order? Resolution?
Okay.
no,
is this,
no, we don't use K.
Address there, too.
No, we don't
DECK.
use K.
Rita, we should have the address in there too.
What is the address?
Fourth Street.
I don't know,
I'll get that too, yeah.
like 60,
Well,
North
then first
Fourth-
thing tomorrow.
North
he's
Fourth
gonna
Street
sign.
is fine. North Fourth Street is fine.
Okay.
we can say across the street from the police.
Across the street from 48.
Down the
or
street
40,
from Angelo.
whatever it is.
Whatever changes, I'll make it tomorrow
Well,
morning.
apparently bond council approved this, but,
That's awesome.
but it leaves it really open, like,
Okay, any others? Roll call.
Okay, Mr. Brown?
Aye.
Mr. Ettinger?
Aye.
Mr. Milan?
Aye.
Mr. O'Connell?
Aye.
Dr. Ruggles?
Aye.
Mrs. Sultano?
Aye.
And Mayor Pianto?
Aye. At this point in the meeting, we're at public comment on any matter concerning the city of Easton. Art?
Honey Rabbits, 144 Church Street, not an alley.
Not an alley.
Clarification.
I think, Jim, I think this is for you. How much do all those little handicap ramps that you're building all over College Hill cost us? Per ramp, little entrance and exits way to each sidewalk.
We're not building them.
You're not doing it?
That's UGI.
Okay.
UGI is paying for them this year. We are building ones, PennDOT's paying for the ones in the circle.
Why would UGI be paying for?
If you,
handicap
the
ramps?
law is if you do more than one lane and affect that intersection, you have to install ADA ramps.
Wow, so they're doing it. Okay, that's great. I thought the city was.
And the other one at the corner of Burke and McCartney is private.
So how much do they cost? Anyone know?
The reason why they cost a lot of money is $32,000 an intersection. I think it's 32,000. The reason is because you have to do it in blocks. You can't just pour it in once. You got to pour certain number, and then you pour the second day and the third day, and so to bring the contractors back is what
I got it.
adds the cost.
Okay. If any,
Oh, I'm sorry. It's $32,000 a ramp. It's almost $80,000 for a whole intersection. So it's $20,000 a ramp.
okay, thanks.
All right. Thank you, Art. Sal.
name is Sal Pugliese. I have a couple properties in the city of Easton.
I need your address, please.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Right
uh,
here. I need your address.
2225 Hackett Avenue is where I live.
Thank you.
My properties are on Butler Street. I came here 2 weeks ago with a problem. I have a disability. I don't do the computer. I'm computer illiterate. I expressed that to you, Mr. Mayor,
you did.
the council, the city of Easton. Mr. Mayor, you almost laughed at me.
No, I never,
That you
I would
said
do that.
Sir, you said to me, we're going to send you a bill and you're going to pay it. Well, sir, I don't do the computer. I express that. When you people send me a bill, is it going to be a late charge to it? Probably, because it was due today. All right? I was so frustrated here the other day. I spent an hour in this building, had to pay for a meter to come and file my taxes that you people are too cheap to put a 60-cent stamp on and mail it to me, which is it's not acceptable as a taxpayer, sir. My taxes went up $10 per unit from last year, and now you don't even want to send me a paper, the card or the paperwork for this tax. That's not acceptable, Mr. Mayor.
I don't disagree with you, Mr. Pugliese. All I'm saying is, because I go through this every day, I have a very young staff who's very computer literate. I have a 95-year-old father who doesn't has a flip phone, and he can't come down and pay by app. And some of our parking lots are only app only. So I understand your frustration. I did not have a chance today, because I was working on a budget, to talk to Mr. Narowski about the rental
License.
rental licensing. And I did not know we were not sending out bills. I didn't realize it's all online. We use, yeah, I know.
I thought
And that's
it
what-
was a tax bill, which we do send out, but
No,
the
sir.
rental
This is rental.
registration.
It's
okay,
rental,
yeah,
it's
yeah.
rental, it's rental, it's the rental
What
inspection.
you're talking about is what,
The license to have apartments.
Right.
okay.
All right, it was
Rental
$65
licensing. Okay.
last year.
Per unit.
It went up to $75, which everything goes up, but the service got cut back. All right? You're too cheap to put a 60-cent stamp on to mail me a bill. And Mr. Mayor, 2 weeks ago, you said, we're going to send you a bill and you're going to pay it. And
I
said,
thought,
yes,
I
sir.
thought they did send out the bills. I
No,
didn't-
sir. I swear to Christ.
Oh,
honest to God,
I'm sure, Sal, I'm not doubting you.
Okay.
I'm not doubting you.
They didn't. They sent us a card. If you wanted to do this online, we can do it online. Well, I don't do the computer. How can I go online when you don't know what to do with the computer? And then I was so frustrated in this building after spending an hour. There was a guy before me, must have been on that computer. The girl was trying to walk him through it for, I'll bet you 20 minutes, half
Was it
hour.
Dr. Ruggles?
No, sir. No.
Because he
No,
had the
I'm sure
same
he knows
issue.
how
I was
to
on
do
the computer and they had to walk me through it too, Sal.
Really? Again, I don't know how to do this stuff. I know. I'm old school. Learn. I'm too old
Well,
to
I'm
learn.
not real familiar with computers either, you know.
Sal, are you all set up now?
Pardon?
Is it all done now?
For this year, sir, do I have to go through it again next year? Or are you people going to send me a bill? And Mr. Mayor, you said you would send me a bill
I
and
thought
I
you
would
did.
pay it.
We-
And I said, yes, sir, I would.
We don't send bills. It's all electronic.
I don't do the electronic.
Right, I understand that, but if you want, I can give you my number because I do rentals too. If you want, I can help you with it to help you
send me
register
the
for
pa-
next year.
Send me the. I
Right,
do
but
that.
but here's the thing though, Sal. We're trying to migrate from paper. I understand you're not a computer guy. I get that, but the city is trying to migrate over to computers because, quite frankly, it helps us track rentals better. That's the reason why we do it.
So what do you do with old school people? that
Well,
wish
you
they
old
dropped
school
dead,
people.
right?
I mean, in our defense, you can come down. They can walk you through it. I mean, you're already set up. So the process next year is going to be a lot easier. Once the setup is done for next year, it's going to be a lot easier. I guarantee it.
I still. The girl wanted me to type it in. I don't do that.
Right, but what I'm saying, but for next year, it's already done though. They're going to send you an email. You have an email? You have email?
No, sir. I don't do the computer.
So you don't do any email?
No, sir.
Okay.
No, I don't do the computer.
Well, then we'll have to talk to Narowski, Lewis.
I mean, send me a bill.
That's all. I mean,
Put 60 cents on an envelope.
That's
Send
fine.
me a bill,
Okay.
and I'll fill it out,
No
and I'll
problem.
come down and I'll pay
All
it.
right,
But
so we'll work with you. My understanding that this is probably one of the only complaints we've received.
yeah, I mean,
We can work with one.
that's fine.
But if it grows, we have to just
We just went through a
revisit.
whole year of registrations.
That's right. We have one. We can work with
We can
one
work with
person. That's not a big
So
deal.
you're gonna send me,
We're gonna reach out to you. I'll talk to Steven Narowski, and we're gonna try to see what we can do, if we can manually
Bye-bye.
send you a bill, okay?
please, and that's what I said 2 weeks
But
ago.
we're-
Send me a bill.
All right.
Mr. Mayor, you said you'd send me a bill and you're gonna pay it. Yeah.
Sal, just do me a favor. Write your number here, and they'll call
Yes,
you.
sir.
Don't mind.
Permission to approach?
You don't have to. You come up. I'm not gonna bite you.
Well, I know,
You can come. You can attack me. It's okay. I have a lot of insurance. No, I'm not. I'm really not. Plus, Joel's right there. He's really tough.
Joel.
He played good defense.
See, here he comes. Coming after you. Here he comes.
I didn't do it.
He's coming after you.
I didn't do it.
See that?
Now I lost my train of thought.
See, it's all humor here. Don't sweat it.
I know,
We'll
but
fix
it was so frustrating
It's
for me.
it's all right. It's all good.
When they say, oh, send us your email, I don't do the email there.
I agree.
The computer.
All right, we got you.
And we're gonna put a
We'll work it.
barcode-
We'll work a
We're
code.
gonna put a barcode on you from now on.
And then just,
And get
Yeah,
this
you're good.
on- and it'll all be on
We're
the-
good, Sal. We'll get this taken care of. I promise.
gonna call me or let me know what's
Yes,
going on?
absolutely.
Please.
Yep.
Again, I am computer.
We got you. We got you. 1 out of 6,000.
You
That's
and
not a bad
30% of
number.
the rest of the population.
There's a lot.
We're good.
The guy before me, the girl, I felt so sorry for the girl. She's trying to help this guy. I'm telling you, he must have been there 20 minutes, half hour, trying to play. Me, I would have probably hit the computer.
We're
by
good.
then.
We're
And then
good.
I would have had to pay for it.
We wouldn't charge you for it. We'd let you break one computer a year.
Thank you.
No problem.
Thank you, Council.
Okay, thank you, Sal. Anyone else like to address city council?
I apologize, I'm out of breath. Kyle Kloss, 421 Northampton Street.
I'm sorry, what's your last name
Kloss, Clauss,
and your address again?
421 Northampton Street.
Thank you.
Sure. So, lately I've noticed that the intersection of 4th Street and Northampton has gotten quite dangerous. People are not observing the crosswalks. There's been a number of times I'm almost been mowed down trying to walk through this crosswalk. And you try to gesture to people like, what are you doing? I'm like,
Now, when you say people aren't observing, is this pedestrians or is this the
I'm sorry, I'm out of breath. This motorist,
motorists?
yes.
Well, it's a signalized signalized intersection.
But even when there's people in the crosswalk, people are still going through.
Yeah, I've seen it.
Which crosswalk is it?
It's Northampton.
4th and Northampton Street is a
Oh, you mean
intersection governed
like
by the
turning.
state. And
Really?
they used to have a pedestrian-only walk sign, and they changed it. PennDOT is really geared towards suburbs, not toward, we mayors of cities fight this all the time. There used to be an all red,
Uh-huh.
and then the walk sign would come on, people could cross.
Yeah.
They got rid of that. And so if I'm coming down Northampton Street, want to turn down 4th Street, and you're crossing 4th Street, I have to know that you're there to stop. Now, pedestrians have the right of way, but unfortunately, that's not always the case when, and we agree, I
They don't have
totally
right
agree
of
with
way
you.
in it.
We have the same thing down here at the Larry Holmes Drive where we normally get our complaints. You can't cross it because there's always traffic moving.
Right.
Traffic is never stopped. And they are geared towards, back in the 60s with the environmental age is moving to traffic. And unfortunately, that's why we're doing what we're doing in the circle. Because there, I watched a lady today, oh my gosh, she went all the way around the circle. It's been red for like 20 minutes. She just kept going.
Oh, Lord.
She came out of a quadrant, just kept going. But yeah, you're absolutely right, Kyle.
Mayor, if I may, two things on this is, I think through council's endorsement, certainly the mayor, we are, the administration's working on grants that would realize a bike lane plan that we have for Northampton Street.
Nice.
That road diet itself could help slow down traffic, at least in one direction. The second thing is, it's timely that you're asking about this because, I think pedestrian safety is an issue right now in the Lehigh Valley with the death that occurred in Allentown in Deerfield with the teacher. I've had discussions with our police chief, who's putting a plan in place to have potentially more eyes on traffic type of violations.
Awesome.
Okay, so while that's a start, and your concern is timely, that we are working on it. And, you know, the bike lane plan may take a year. We're looking for grants. It's about $1 million improvement on Northampton Street, and that block is part of it, that intersection.
And that's from the circle to
Is part of it,
15th.
yes, yeah. So we're in that process. Unfortunately, you may not see it overnight, but it's a concern of all of ours. I walk the streets daily. I do that as CA, and I've learned this in real estate. You need to walk the streets, and you need to experience what you're experiencing in order to make better decisions. And I can't tell you that there's been many times where I probably shouldn't, but I would walk and take my right across a pedestrian walkway and make sure that the sign is in the appropriate place. And I call the director and I ask why the sign is in this position or that position. I complain immediately. But we're all have that mindset. And so I want to let you know that. So while you may not see something overnight, we are working on it, and it's on our mindset.
That sounds great. Yeah.
Yeah, the other thing is, when we made Northampton Street one way on the 300 block, we need an overhead mast. Because what's happening is, I thought you were going to complain, because what happened to me the other day is, now in order to go straight, you have to be in a left lane. And it's a right turn only in the right lane. And people are used to being in the right lane, and they're going straight, and they're cutting people off. But that intersection itself is governed by state, so we'll talk to Senator Boscola about that.
Okay.
When I met with them, when I first got in office in 2008, I met with her and Mr. Freeman, and I said, there are 12 things that you can do that don't cost the state a penny. For example, you can't park 30 feet within a corner. Well, our buildings are 10 feet from a corner. So we lose one intersection in every, 4 parking spaces in every intersection in West Ward. Because the building is there. I mean, we're not moving buildings. But in the suburbs, 30 feet could be 50 feet. It doesn't matter. But that was one of the ones that we talked about.
Okay.
Thanks.
That's great. The other thing I just wanted to mention was, I don't know if it's, I'd be the first to admit, not a car guy. Maybe it's the mufflers, alterations to the mufflers, but the sound, and that's another thing I remembered. Want to applaud you all for banning the fireworks. I think that's awesome. It's a fantastic decision. In that same line of thought, the noise from the cars, my fiance works at home, so she hears it all day. And it's pretty deafening. I mean, part of that I understand is part of living in a city, and we're right downtown, so I get that. But at the same time, I don't know if there's ticketing that can be done, because the noise is just pretty crazy.
If I may comment on just a couple of things. This is a citizen's observations, not so much a solicitor's observation. The thing about the noise, I mean, we were eating, my wife and I, right down the block here on Northampton Street. And the motorcyclists, of course, have this wonderful tradition of, blowing out everybody's ears. And I was trying to figure out a way you could deal with this. And one suggestion would be that it's legal to have a paint gun that you could shoot at a motorcyclist whose noises are too loud. Because I don't know how else you deal with them.
We could be Minersville.
I mean, my wife is convinced that the motorcycles on the highways that go 120 miles an hour and bizz by you, and I swear my car jumps out because I don't know what this thing is that just flew by my windshield. But that the police will never arrest them because they're too fast and they don't want to bother. The turning part is difficult because now that we have the two-way streets, you're so focused on the other traffic that you lose sight of the pedestrian. And I don't know how you avoid that other than those complete stops for traffic. And the one thing about the bicycles, Louis, since I drive in New York City a lot because my daughters live in Brooklyn, our only accident was a bicycle running down my daughter, because bicycles have no rules whatsoever. You could put the lane there, but it's just an invitation that they could go anywhere they want. So watch out when they put the bicycle lane in there. Not only do you watch out for the cars, watch out for the bicyclists, because they're not stopping for you.
And Klaus, you can talk to John Kingsley too. I was going to tell you that because it's his team that's applying for the grants. Because since I know you're on the RDA board, so you can talk to John.
Cool.
Right.
Cool. Thank you very much. I got a pizza to pick
Take
up.
care. Thank you. Anyone else like to address City Council? Seeing none?
Move to adjourn.
Move to adjourn.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Discussion. Roll call, Madam Clerk.
Mr. O'Connell?
Aye.
Dr. Ruggles?
Aye.
Mrs. Sultana?
Aye.
Mayor Pianto?
Aye.
Mr. Brown?
Aye.
Mr. Ettinger?
Aye.
Mr. Milan?
Aye.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you all.
Bye.
By the way,